All right, so this next lesson is mindset for success. Before you go run a service call, we need our mind in the right place. We need to be ready to get in front of a client. And if we have distractions, if we're not in the right mindset, a lot of times it doesn't go well. Okay? So the first thing I want to say is if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss type thing, but it's true. If you always do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results, right? So if you want to get better, you need to change. If you don't run a system, like I'm about to teach you on these videos, you don't know what works. You don't know what doesn't work. So if you go into homes and you just wing it all the time, how do you know what works? How do you know what doesn't work? If your closing rate is good, how do you know what part of it is making it good? If your closing rate is bad, how do you fix it if you don't have a system? So you gotta run every service call kind of the same, all right? And that's why we have a system. Remember, your first goal of every service call, the first goal is for the customer to use us a second time. Think about that. Our first goal of every service call is for the customer to use us a second time. And if we want them to use a second time, we need to give them our best. We need to be our best every single time. You got to get out of your own way. Don't worry about what you would do. If I was the customer, if this was my family, if this was my house, all that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not your home. It's not your money. It's not your family. It's not your house. It's the customers. It's up to them. It's always up to them. Number one thing, customers need to like and trust you. Let's think about this. When's the last time you bought something from somebody? Generally, you like them and you trust them, either the person and or the company. If you walked into a clothing store and the owner there was somebody that you didn't trust and you didn't like them and they were annoying and they were following you around and bugging you and doing all this stuff, you probably wouldn't buy from them. Same thing with you. They have to like you and they have to trust you. And we already have a bad stigma in the home service industry of people doing bad work, people ripping people off, things like that. So there's already a trust factor that's an issue in our industry, and we have to overcome that. It's not our fault. It's not our fault, but we have to take care of it. So your mindset, a checkup from the neck up. You got to get your mind in right, okay? We got to block out the bad. We might have gotten a fight with our spouse that morning. We might have somebody in our family with an illness. We might not be feeling the best that day. We might be dealing with money issues. We might be worried about retirement or a problem with our son or daughter or something like that's happening, right? We got to block all that out, because if that stuff is in your mind and clogging up your head, you're not going to give your customer all the attention that they deserve, and you're probably not going to be very successful. And I know this is way easier said than done, but we got to get rid of that stuff, because it's not going to help you. If you left your house that morning and you have a problem going on at home or in your personal life, the minute you step in that house worrying about it or thinking about it, it's not going to help you. You can't fix anything while you're in the customer's house. You just can't. So we got to block that stuff out. We got to block it out as much as possible, okay? I'm going to touch on mental illness. So mental illness affects 1 out of every 5 people. Think about that. You're in a room with 5 people. One of those persons in that room has a mental illness. That can be anxiety, depression, postpartum, suicide idealization, bipolar, all kinds of issues. Most mental illnesses never get diagnosed, and they never get treated, which means people don't even know they have them. They just live with them, okay? Here's a general rule of thumb for yourself. If it affects 2 places in your life for more than 2 weeks, you should go get checked out. That's it. If something is in your mind and it's affecting work or your marriage or your family life or your faith life for more than 2 weeks, you should get help. Okay? And men are the number one suicidal rates because we don't get help. All right? If nobody's ever told you this, if I'm your boss, if you're working for Service Today, or me as your trainer, I give you permission to go get help if you need to. Okay? Because if you're not mentally stable and you have issues, you're not going to be successful. And if you're not successful, it's going to cause you more stress. And if you're more stressed, you're going to have worse mental illness. You see how it goes on top of each other? Good builds on good, bad builds on bad. Please get yourself taken care of if you feel like that might be an issue. There's free, anonymous resources out there to do that, okay? Now, 1 in 5 people, like I said, that means 1 in 5 coworkers. That means 1 in 5 managers. That means 1 in 5 friends. But that also means 1 in 5 customers have this. So that might explain when you go to somebody's house and you give them a price and they totally explode. It's not you. It's not your price. They're dealing with something inside of them. When somebody is disrespectful or mean or goes off the handle, while I know it's hard not to get upset and want to argue with them and get mad inside, try to feel bad for them. They have a mental illness that they can't beat right now. That's usually the problem. Are there exceptions to that? Absolutely. There are some people who are just jerks out there, and I agree with that. But for the majority of the people, they're battling something that's bigger than them and bigger than you, okay? Now, we also sometimes, as technicians, we have to block out the good. And here's what I mean by that. I see this a lot, especially on Fridays. All we want to do is get off work because we want to go up north hunting, or we're going to take a trip to Mexico, or we have a birthday party that night, or whatever. We're excited about something happening. Our sons got a football game that night, or whatever. Like, we're excited about something going on after work. And we're so worried about getting home late that we screw the entire day up. Happens all the time. We rush through 3 service calls just so we don't have to worry about getting home late. Now, I'm not saying there aren't days you want to get home early. Like, I totally understand that. So my point is with this. If something like that is going on, if you work at Service Today, I know we already do this for you. At your company, if you don't work for Service Today, talk to your owner or manager. If you're going to go hunting for the weekend and you want to leave work by 4 or 5 o'clock so you can get on the road up north, I would much rather block you off the last part of the day and have you run 2 good service calls than blow through 3. Does that make sense? Work with your dispatcher. Work with your manager. But you got to tell them in advance. You can't tell them that morning. You can't even tell them that week because we're probably booked for the week. You got to tell them a week or 2 in advance. And if this doesn't happen more than a few times a year, we'll be happy to block off a time slot for you so you don't have to worry about it. And you can get home or get up north or whatever it may be. Work with your dispatchers, not against your dispatchers. I promise you, you'll be happier, they'll be happier. And I'm telling you, dispatchers can do you some favors sometimes if you're good to them. All right? Surround yourself with positive people. If there are people in your life that bring you down, please really think about, do you need them in your life anymore? Now, you can't change your siblings, but as adults, we don't have to spend time with them. We don't have to talk to our parents. We don't have to talk to negative friends. If your spouse is negative, that's your own personal choice how you're going to deal with that one. But in general, surround yourself by positive people. Nobody ever in the history of ever got ahead in this world with a negative attitude. Nobody. It doesn't happen. So, get rid of negative people in your life as much as possible. It's really hard to lift people up, but it's very easy to tear them down. So, if I was to stand on a chair, right? So if I was to stand on this chair right here, okay? You could pull me off very easily. Wouldn't take much to pull me off. But I weigh over 200 pounds. If you wanted to lift me up onto that chair, that's going to be very difficult, correct? But here's the thing. Throughout your day, you need to be lifted up sometimes. You have coworkers that you're going to need to help lift up sometimes. And here's why I bring this up. Group text messages is a great example. Technicians will put a group text message together and it'll say something like, "Yep, I got to work late again. You know, every time on a Thursday when I want to get home, blah, 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 blah." And he sends us out to all the technicians in the company because they're all on this private text message thread, right? You just pulled everybody else down off their chair on that text message. If they were having a good day, or they were happy with the company, or they were happy with their job, you just made them less happy by what you said. You pulled them off their chair. Don't do that to people. Don't do that to people. It's not fair to them. If you have an issue of something with my company or the company you work with, the only people that can fix that are managers and owners. That's it. Complaining to the rest of the group will do nothing. Zero, except create a horrible culture and you'll be pulling people off their chair. Now, however, if you're on one of these message threads or somebody's talking to you in the parking lot and they're complaining about the company or complaining about a job, lift them up. I know it's harder, but lift them up. You'll be doing them a favor. I know, Joe, I don't like working late either. I get it. But you know what? You get to make a little bit more money on this paycheck. You're going to help another customer in need. And if this happens too often, go talk to your manager. Go talk to Joe or Frank or Kent or whoever it is. Talk to them about it. I bet they'll work with you. And we usually do, right? We usually do. So please, please don't pull people off their chair. Lift them up onto the chair, okay? Help them. Turn their attitude around, because in customer service, a bad attitude will never get you anywhere. And you're not helping your friend. You're not helping your coworker by agreeing with them, because that's what we do. We don't want to rock the boat, so we agree with them. Yeah, I know. I hate when they do that. I hate when they send me on those calls. And the guy's like, yeah, and then you both leave mad. Well, who wins in that? Nobody wins, okay? So please don't pull people off their chair. On the way to the call, think in your head, I'm going to give this customer the best experience they've ever seen. And mean it and believe it. I will give this customer the best experience they've ever seen. And you tell yourself that to your head over and over and over again. I have a technician that has that a label maker, and he has that on the dash of his truck. I think it says something like, give every customer your best, or something along those lines. Because everybody needs a reminder. Everybody does. Because we have bad days and people pull us off our chairs. Okay. So, what are some characteristics of a good technician? Go ahead right now and write down on a piece of paper what the characteristics of a good technician are. I want you to go ahead and do that right now. Okay? And then when you're done, you can watch the next video. All right.